Hey there, Alex here. Non-duality has a ton of myths and misinterpretations surrounding it, and it's understandable because there's so many different expressions of this message, and I can see how easily it could get misinterpreted. So today, we're going to clear some things up and debunk some common myths and misinterpretations about non-duality, as replies to comments on my channel. Zander1756 says, "Disassociation is an actual mental disorder, and here you are advocating for it." This was a comment on a video I did about disidentification from thinking. Disassociation in mainstream psychology refers to an involuntary disconnection from thoughts, emotions, identity, or reality, often as a coping mechanism in response to extreme stress or trauma. Now, there's mild forms of it, like daydreaming or zoning out, and there's more severe forms that are classified in the field of psychology as disorders, like dissociative identity disorder, depersonalization, derealization disorder, which I believe is what the commenter is referring to. And this is why in the video I never said the words disassociation or disconnection, as that refers to an involuntary and often distressing disconnection from thoughts, emotions, or reality. Disidentification from thinking, on the other hand, is conscious, a freeing recognition that you are not your thoughts, and this leads to liberation from mental suffering. It's not about disconnecting, it's about not forming an identity out of every thought and feeling forced to believe that they're all true. For example, in the past, I had extremely disturbing thoughts telling me I should do something to myself that I won't mention in this video in case it gets censored, but you can probably guess what I'm talking about. If I believed I was the identity in the thought, as in I was the I in the thought, I should do this, then I may well have followed it. Instead, I disidentified from thoughts like that by recognizing they're just thoughts and not the truth about reality or what I should do. So, disassociation can be harmful, but disidentification can potentially save your life. You're wrong. Wrong about almost everything. Non-duality is one to help narcissists deal with shame and guilt by ignoring it, like there's no such thing as being an evil person. So, if I were to guess, I would guess this misunderstanding most likely comes from listening to so-called radical non-duality speakers who say things like there's no one here, or nothing matters or has any meaning, without much other context. Non-duality isn't about ignoring shame or guilt, or any other emotion for that fact. It's about seeing them in their true context, and not forming an identity out of them or letting them define you. In fact, true non-dual awareness is like the opposite of ignoring them. Emotions like fear, guilt, shame, and anger have a primary component as physically felt sensations in the body. We usually ignore this component of our emotions by having so much of our focus on thinking and personal identity. And that can often compound these feelings through unconscious identification with guilty, shameful mental narratives that keep the feelings in place or even make them worse. This prevents the feelings from being fully processed and resolved. In the light of awareness, we can feel the full spectrum of our feelings and allow the thoughts to process without being overly attached to them. We don't ignore the thoughts or feelings, we actually honor them by resting perceptually as the loving awareness in which they appear. Instead of forming an identity out of them, we allow them to process, resolve, and release. As for non-duality saying there's no such thing as an evil person, it's not saying exactly that. It doesn't deny morality or claim evil doesn't exist in the relative world. Concepts of right and wrong still function in the relative experience, whilst we also recognize the consciousness that transcends all concepts. So relative acts of good and evil are still recognized, whilst we also see the ultimate truth that it's all an expression of universal consciousness. And this actually enables us to deal with genuine acts of evil with greater clarity and wisdom, without personal biases clouding our judgment. It also provides a true foundation for morality, rather than conventional systems based purely on the paradigm of personhood and separation. You see, most moral frameworks rely on existing rules, social conditioning, unquestioned rules, fear-based consequences, rather than direct wisdom. As it's recognized that we're non-separate from everything and everyone, the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you takes on a new, deeper meaning. Others are recognized as essentially being part of you, and so harming others is seen as harming yourself. Brian P-BH1VO says, the central problem is that this recent wave of spiritually awakened 95% white men on YouTube say that there's no one else out there. It's just your own consciousness. Why then are you preaching a path to a non-existent group? I believe all of you are preening, boasting narcissists who are chasing views and have little to none interest in true spirituality. Love everyone and everything, and you will see God on earth. So I can understand why this commenter might interpret some of the apparently non-dual messages this way. Some so-called radical non-duality speakers do say blanket statements like, there's no one here, and without context this could be a bit misunderstood. The exact words that I actually said in the video are, there is no one else out there but you. Not that others aren't experiencing, but that we're all the same non-dual consciousness. So the you I'm referring to here isn't a personal individual you, but a universal you. In this context, I'm saying there's no one else out there that's fundamentally separate from you, and that ultimately we're all the same consciousness experiencing itself from apparently individuated perspectives. So we're not exactly preaching to a non-existent group, we're recognizing the universality of consciousness. And this recognition clarifies our fundamental non-separateness, which is true love. Now, as for race and gender representation, I can't talk for this person's YouTube experience. I personally get recommended mostly women talking about non-duality, and I get about a 50-50 gender split and a variety of different backgrounds when I search for it. YouTube's algorithm recommends based on demographics and viewing habits, so this could be influencing what the person is seeing here. Stegosaurus12345 says, I was much happier before non-duality because I can't see how different it is from solipsism, and a further comment that I addressed in a reply to this commenter. I get this comment a lot. Non-duality is basically solipsism. It's probably the most common misunderstanding of non-duality, and I can understand how easily it could be misinterpreted. So if you don't know, solipsism means only my mind is sure to exist, as in only my individual mind exists and everyone else is just mindless automatons without their own objective experience. And this isn't what non-duality is actually communicating. What non-duality is pointing to is everything exists within the mind of God or the universe. It's not saying only my individual consciousness exists, it's saying only universal consciousness is. And so this is very, very different from solipsism. Imagine you were a consciousness, a being that could have 8 billion dreams simultaneously at once, but you appear to only experience them one at a time. In solipsism, no one else has a subjective experience. In non-duality, everyone has their own apparently subjective experience. It's just that the reality of their apparently separate experience is derived from this single consciousness or beingness. In this way, we recognize others and their apparently individual experience, whilst recognizing that we all arise out of the same fundamental beingness or consciousness that underlies all experience. Again, this recognition serves as the foundation for true love. As we recognize our inherent non-separateness, we can gradually embody that truth in how we see, think about, and act towards each other. For one-on-one coaching inquiries, for those serious about potentially working together, go to speaktoalex.com. Peace.